Today I am joined by a very special guest, Olyroos midfielder and defender, Chris Donnell. Thanks for joining me today, Chris.
No worries, mate. My pleasure.
Now, my first question's always a pretty easy one. I did tell you it would be a very laid back interview, and you can't get more laid back than this. Just
hmm
where did your passion and love for football first begin?
I think for me, a big part of it was from my dad and from my family. I come from a big footballing family. My dad played the game all his life at a decent level, and coming from obviously I was born in Scotland, Glasgow. Coming from a big city, a big footballing city like that, it's pretty much in your DNA from the day you're born. So I think growing up in a household that just loved the game, I was destined to have that same passion for it. And then growing up, getting into like the little stuff in terms of just going down. There's a I don't know if you know it, but grasshopper soccer was my first time I went to like a collaborative football team, as you would say. And then from there, yeah, I just loved playing. I wouldn't pass the ball to anybody, just wanted the ball all the time, and then never looked back from there.
As you mentioned, Scotland is pretty much live and breathe football, like it's a religion over there, particularly
Yeah,
Glasgow. I mean, if you're Celtic or Rangers, it's a big rivalry. With
yeah,
Australia, moving to Australia, we're not so much a football country. We've got a lot of sports to compete with.
of
Western
course.
Australia has a lot of sports that they love, AFL,
hmm
cricket, rugby league. Was there any sports coming over to Australia that grabbed your attention that you played a little bit, maybe AFL, maybe cricket? And were you any good at any of them, or was it always for you just football?
Never anything else. The only one I ever done competitively was little athletics when I was younger. But the others, the only time I ever played cricket or any other sport, I played rugby as well. Was like you do little lightning carnivals at school at the end of every semester, and football is only in one of them terms. So obviously there's four school terms, so you have to pick three other sports, and I done cricket and rugby just because they were probably the only ones that I enjoyed. But I remember when I was 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old, my auntie brought me Australian rules football home, and I actually was holding it for a little bit, didn't do anything with it. But the next time I seen it, it was Dad kicking it over the fence to the plot of land behind because he didn't want me getting influenced by any other sport. So, but apart from that, I've never really been interested in anything else. It's always just been football or soccer.
And playing football as a kid in the backyard or at Grasshoppers football, we all like to emulate the moves of like heroes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For you, who was that guy that you loved to watch that you practice in the backyard to try and do their moves? Did you have a standout favorite player or not really?
I think when I was younger, like really young, like 4 or 5 again, I think that was when Messi was just reaching his like prime. Like, uh, what he must have been about 22, early 20s, and he was just obviously unbelievable. I'm not saying that I was watching him properly because I'd be lying if I was, but just seeing the goals he'd score in that. But a few years down the track when I could properly, because that's everybody's one, that's a bit boring. So Steven Gerrard has always been my hero, my person I try and emulate my game on. Obviously, he comes from a city where you're one or the other, being Liverpool or Everton. And I love the fact that he always wore that passion and that the way he played emulated the style that I wanted to. So yeah, from then until now, I've always thought of him as somebody I'd try and emulate my game on.
And it's a pretty common dream for people to have, wanting to be a professional athlete, not just footballer, but
Yeah.
everyone wants to, do sports for a living and all that sort of thing. Was there ever a moment for you, maybe when you got in an academy, maybe when you're a bit older, where you thought, this is something that I want to do? And when was the moment where you started to realize that it was something you could realistically achieve?
Yeah, I think that's funny you asked that because I was speaking to my dad the other day about it. I was like, obviously, when you're younger, you have that dream, but even I know I'm nowhere near where I need to be or want to be, but that's another big part of the journey, which I'm looking forward to. But just to get to where I am now, it's like you look back and it's like, yeah, the hard work was worth it. And I said to my dad, I was like, oh, what when did you think that I had a chance? and he said like he always thought I had a chance, but you never know if that's just because he's your dad he's saying that or if he actually said that. But I think for me, I was just so in love with the game that I never really had to stress too much about it. I just thought in my head it was like that's all I ever wanted to do, and luckily up until now that has been all I've been able to do. So I'm not too sure. There's definitely times throughout that journey where you kind of doubt yourself a little bit and question if you're going to be the one to go through because we know the percentages. Um, but I don't know. I think maybe 15, 16 was like when I could literally sit down consciously and say to myself, "Yeah, you've got a chance to go wherever you want to." And obviously, from now till there, that's going to require a lot of hard work. But again, it's part of the journey, and you have to enjoy it. So
And you're right, it does take a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication. And a lot of these academies sign up, pretty much when you're still a kid. So you're
yeah,
spending your teenage years, the adolescence, becoming a footballer, having to train, having to sacrifice and work hard. For you being in high school, being a young kid, getting signed by Perth Glory's academy, what were some of the biggest sacrifices that you have to make early on?
I think just the generic ones that you always hear about. You're playing on a Saturday when your friends are probably not doing anything on a Saturday, so they're going out on a Friday night. Um, and obviously, at that age, you can probably get away with going out on a Friday night, to be honest. But it's just about building habits that's going to help you in the future. So I think sacrificing your social life a little bit when your friends want to go out for some food after school or something. And obviously, I'm talking about like when you're 15, 16, not really when you're a bit younger. But when they want to go out for food after school, you have to get yourself to training and that. And yeah, just you have to kind of stay on the right path, not because it's going to affect you then, but just so you can build good habits to separate yourself to get to where you want to get to. But I was very fortunate. I went to a football school called John Curtin. I loved my time there, and also the people around me were very driven as well to get as far as they could. Maybe not professionally, but as far as they could in the sport. So I keep in contact with all those boys now. I've been out of school for 4 years now, so it's cool to have that friendship with them and that support. And they always message me when I'm doing well. They're always there for me when things aren't going so well. So I think the environment helped me a lot. But also like my mum and dad sacrificed a lot for me. A lot of their social life as well. A lot of their time was spent taking me up and down the freeway to training and that Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, all around the city. So a lot of dues is owed to them.
And you were mentioning how many people don't make it. Even making it to your professional debut is something that I think probably 99% of people that set out to play football don't achieve. Your
Yeah,
professional debut come at a very, very young age. I think you were 17. It was an
yeah.
FFA Cup or Australia Cup playoff against Melbourne Victory. Now, leading up to that match, did you always know that you were going to get handed your debut, or was it one of those things where you kind of just got told last minute, you're up, you're going to start, with the seniors, you're going to play a game?
Yeah. But I think that was a very confusing time for everybody because it was during COVID. So we played Melbourne Victory, I believe, in Adelaide. It was a mutual venue, so it was very weird. But a lot of the younger boys made their debuts that day, and it was something that we kind of thought we had the chance to do. Maybe not start and play a full 120 minutes, but from the start of pre-season, the youth team was pretty much training with the first team every single day, and the incentive was to train well because there was spaces available to go and make your debut. And eventually, a lot of us did it because of the tight scheduling between that game and the next A League game. So they took a lot. They took a very young squad over, and it was a good experience for us all to make our debuts together with our friends that we played with in the NPL. But I think looking back on it, you don't even think of it too much of a big deal. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just another game, especially when you're at that age. Nothing really makes sense to you at that age. Like you don't think about the long term side of it. You just want to play football and impress people. And I think that's the way that I looked at it. But yeah, it was a good day. It was a good moment. But unfortunately, we didn't win, so could have been better.
And for your personal performance, as you mentioned, it's a good opportunity to really put yourself in the show, like the showroom, show what you're made of. and potentially lead to more football in the future.
Yeah,
Debu's a big game though, a lot of nerves. So
yeah, of
looking
course.
back on it, if you remember, personally, how do you think you went during the match?
Well, we conceded the first 20 seconds of the game. So we conceded that early, and you're looking at it, you're like, yeah, this could be a long day. Obviously, Melbourne victory, good side. But then we grew into the game and we scored midway through the first half. And I think personally, I grew into the game as well. I was really happy with my performance on the night. Uh, Took a penalty, scored the penalty as well, which I was happy with. But yeah, I was personally very happy with how I played. But that night, it was a mixed feeling because obviously you've got knocked out the cup, but you've made your debut and you feel like you've done well. So bit of mixed emotions. But yeah, so I would say I was happy with the performance. I think I gave a good account to myself, and yeah,
And you did get a couple of opportunities later on in the A League with the senior boys. Making
yeah.
that step up from youth football to playing full professional senior football, was it a big step up for you, or was it not too difficult considering they intricated you a little bit?
I think it's a difficult question to add because um, I felt as if I'd done well on my A League debut against Wellington Phoenix, but also there are moments that you look back at it, especially now after growing as a player, and you think you can do more. Um, But I think also the team was going through a tough time. Loads of injuries. There was loads of change. There was a managerial change. COVID was affecting the way that our fixtures were played. So going into that environment as a young player was probably a little bit. You had to navigate it yourself because it had never happened before. And there's therefore games that I look back and I think maybe I could have done a little bit more. But like the times that I played a fair amount of minutes, I was happy with how I performed against Wellington Phoenix on my debut. Again, I was happy. I thought it was a decent performance for myself, apart from the result. But I think all the boys, senior boys, were really good with us, and we trained with them a lot that season. So I don't think it was too hard to go in and play in terms of nerves or anything like that. But there was therefore some factors throughout that season that made it a bit more difficult to get away with wins and things like that. Away games were obviously hard because you're staying away from your family for a few games at a time instead of going there and coming back. But yeah, it was enjoyable nevertheless.
Did you have any opponents in the A League that you come up against and they absolutely, were another level and you thought, shit, this guy's good. This is what professional football's all about. And does anyone stand out to you?
I think for me it was like I didn't I only played 20 minutes in the game, but I was on the bench the next game as well, and it was obviously he's not in his prime, but Diamante was still like you could just tell the level in terms of he was a bit older, probably not as sharp, but just like the touch, the wit, like the football IQ, you could tell the difference. And I think that was one player that stood out. But obviously, there's loads of players you played against: Melbourne Victory, Melbourne City, um, even Wellington Phoenix had a few good players. Um, And yeah, I played against Adelaide, and Nestroy was coming through at the time. He scored a good goal against us. Yeah, and he done well. So and Silvera was another good player. So yeah, there was some good opposition in there, especially playing in the middle of the park. But I think for me, the one was Diamandi. It's just like seeing his quality and things like that.
And as you mentioned at Perth Glory, there was a couple of off-field issues and they just had COVID and all that sort of thing. And it led to not only you, but a bunch of boys getting kind of, let's just say, not really as appreciated as I thought they should have. Your
hmm
minutes kind of declined a little bit. And then all of a sudden, there's a move to Fulham. So
Yeah.
can you talk us through how that move come about? When did you first find out they were interested? And just how did you get from Perth Glory to Fulham?
Yeah, so I think, as you said, like the season before, I'd made my debut in the FA Cup. November it was, and then made my debut in the A League. I think I played 5 games, 5 or 6 games in the A League, and I was like going into that preseason. I was like, all right, I can. kind of kick on here, get some more minutes in that. And then we made a lot of signings because obviously it was Rubes' first proper transfer window because he'd just been appointed the season before at the back end. So I'm going into that season thinking that there's an opportunity for me to play here and kick into the team. But then we made a lot of like big signings as well in the middle of the park. Mustafa Amini, Aaron McNair, Keegs was coming into the fold as well and doing really well, even though he's a bit more attacking than I am. Just a lot of midfielders and players in that position who are good players and they're doing well. So I didn't play as much as I wanted to, and then we get to January time, windows open. They're trying to get me to sign a new contract, but um, they were going to get me to sign a new contract and go out on loan. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to either stay and play, or I wanted to go abroad. I didn't want to go on loan in the A League. And Fulham listened to that, and they were really supportive of that. And they were the actual ones that sent me to Fulham. Joe Gallen and Andy Keogh had the links there. There was Crystal Palace and Southampton as well to go to, but Fulham was the first one I went to, and yeah, just done really well in the trial. The trial was split up between the Asian Cup for the under 20s. So I went there for like 10 days, and then I went to the Asian Cup and I came back. They said they wanted to see me again, so I came back. And that was in the February. And yeah, from there they said, "Look, we're going to try and get this deal done." And I think it was done in a couple months after. So it was a bit of a whirlwind. It was a bit of a random situation going in one day and saying like you're not going to sign the contract, and then the next day you're on a flight to Fulham. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of a weird one, but I was grateful for it at the time and still am today. I think that it's made me the player I am and gave me opportunities to go and impress over there in the new shop window. And I'm grateful to Andy, the club, and Joe Gallen for that as well. So, yeah,
It also made a lot of headlines down here in Australia, a young kid, a young prospect who plays for our youth national team signing for Fulham, one of the biggest
yeah,
sides in England. Now, obviously, that brings a lot of social media interest and a lot of people now like looking at you and thinking, shit, this guy's like a good player for our future. Did that put a lot of pressure on you, or was that something that you tried to just ignore and you had maybe people around you that just protected you from all of that?
nah, I think there's obviously pressure in football, but when you realise that it's like you live in your dream, you know what I mean? Like that's what you want. You want. I know it sounds cliche, but the pressure is a privilege. Like it means that you're doing something you love, and there's meaning behind it. So obviously, speaking to my family and things like that, they helped me with that a lot. But as soon as I found out I was going over there, I was just tunnel vision, go over there. I know what I can do. I know I can make an impact and improve as a player and as a person. So that's what I wanted to do. Obviously, people are going to talk a lot on social media, whether you're doing well, whether you're doing bad. You do see it, but also I need to be realistic in the way that I'm not that big of a player. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's not like every second social media platform is posting about me. It's not like that. So it wasn't too hard to deal with in all honesty. And I'm grateful for the people that do say good things, or even for the people that don't say good things, because it means that there's eyes on you, and that shows that you're in a place that has meaning, you know?
Australia obviously isn't a very big football country. Don't need to tell you, England's a massive football country, particularly when you move to a Premier League team. So how different was it, sorry, moving from Australia where pretty much if you're an A-League player, you can walk down the street, people don't know you.
Yeah,
In England, if you're a Premier League player, like you wouldn't get any privacy. People love the team,
yeah,
watch the reserves. It's just football, football,
yeah.
football. Was it a big adjustment?
I think for one, like obviously, like the level in Australia is just getting better. You see that. You see how much European Asian market is dipping into Australia, and hopefully, long that may that continue. The national team is full of a lot of homegrown players that are playing in the A League, coming from the A League. Obviously, the national team coaches just came from the A League, so that's good as well. And I think as soon as it keeps going on like this, there's going to be more eyes on it, more people come to the games, and that's only going to help improve the league. So I think the A League is in a good position in terms of that, and it's only going to get better. Um, but as you say, England is people live and breathe it. and no matter how many people come and watch, that's probably something that not many countries around the world can compare to. Um, but as for what you were saying about the side of getting of people knowing you and recognize you, yeah, it is cool, and there is a few people that do. But again, I'm not going to sit there and say that I was going to get my groceries and people were chasing me down the street, because it wasn't like that. Obviously, I wasn't playing in the first team. Um, but when you go to the games and things like that, there's people that recognize you after your own games. There's people that come up and ask you to speak or ask you for a photo, and it is cool. It's a bit of an honor in a way as well, especially if there's a kid that wants to talk to you or ask you something. It's cool, because obviously that's just what you were one not so long ago. But it wasn't too bad in terms of changing. I've got family in Scotland, not too far up the road, so it was quite easy to adapt from that. And the only difference is the weather, I think.
And on the weather, like obviously when players come over to Australia, we play
Yeah,
football in the summer, they struggle.
yeah,
Famously, William Gallas, a legend of the Premier League, played for Perth Glory. There's a clip of him just sweat dripping off his forehead. He can't breathe. And
yeah,
they say about how difficult it is to adjust going from Europe to Australia. But going from Australia, particularly Perth, with how absolutely brutally hot it is there, to a place
yeah,
like London, where if you see people training, they wear gloves, they wear like skivvies and everything. Was
yeah.
that difficult to change? Was that difficult to train over there, or was it another thing that you kind of just didn't really, it didn't phase you?
Now, I think obviously it's different, but I think that's another reason as well that people don't understand. Like, people might say that the A League is a little bit slower or not, but until you're playing in 40-degree heat in Perth in the middle of January, you can't say like anything, because it's tough. And I think that's where a lot of Australian players and teams need a lot of respect, because they can play through that, where a lot of countries around the world they wouldn't be able to. But it's definitely a different experience. Like, you go to the UK, and at 3:30 in the afternoon it's getting dark in winter, and the pitches are like frozen. It's a bit of a different experience, but what can you do? You know what I mean? You can't sit there and just whinge about it. You have to get on with it. But yeah, it's a little bit different in the middle of winter. The pitch is like snowing at half time. It's all white. You have to use a yellow ball so you can see it and stuff. So it is a little bit different. But I'd say it's probably harder going the other way, coming from Europe to Australia, dealing with that heat is definitely harder than going to deal with the cold.
While you're at the youth team at Perth Glory, also, you were captain. You captained Fulham's under 21 side. Is that a thing that you've always been as a kid? Were you always a natural leader? Were you one of those guys that put your hand up and in the dressing room you maybe talk and you guide the boys? Or was captaincy just something that has always followed you? People have given you the captain's armband.
Now, I think it's definitely something like leadership in general has been something that's came quite naturally, because I just want to be out on like front of the line in terms of putting yourself out there, whether you're right or wrong. Um, I think that's important to show that you do make mistakes and things like that. But yeah, I think it's something that's came quite naturally to me since I was younger. Obviously at Perth Glory and then Fulham, it is enjoyable to be part of like a group of boys that can lead the team and help when things are going tough. I think that's one of the main reasons why it's happened to me, because just like attitude and mentality when things aren't going so well as well. Um, but yeah, it's also something that I try and continue to improve on, because you're dealt with new challenges and new opportunities all the time. And being captain of the youth teams hopefully is going to put me in good stead of doing it in the future in a first team environment. So yeah,
Now, I want to talk about the national team a little bit. You've obviously represented Australia at a
yeah.
number of levels. That first time you got called up, the first time you made the Australian squad, you saw your name on the back of the green and gold jersey. If you can put it into words, just how special of a moment was that?
I think it was a little bit like unexpected at the time, because everything that season again happened really quickly in terms of I probably thought I was further away from the first team at Perth Glory than I was, and then I made my debut in the cup, made my debut in the A League, and then I was playing for Australia, and I think it was the accumulation of a lot of hard work, but also it is pretty special. It's an honour, and it's an honour that you feel even more when you're actually there, living in the moment. Um, and you see back home when you're in tournaments like the Asian Cup, you see people putting things on Facebook, on Twitter, and it's kind of cool because you feel as if the whole nation is behind you. Do you know what I mean? When you're playing for your club team, might be your city or wherever, but when you're playing for the national team, it's like everybody wants you to do well. The whole country is like rooting for you to do well, and it is a pleasure and it's an honour. And also, I think you need to take your opportunity because you never know when the next opportunity comes. Because when you're with your club, you're obviously contracted for a year or 2 years, 3 years, but no matter how well you do, you're never guaranteed that next opportunity to represent Australia, wear the green and gold. And that's something I'm trying to focus on now. The next opportunity, trying to break into that team again, um, and hopefully one day become a soccerer.
Fingers crossed we see you at Socceroos level one day.
Yeah,
Playing for Fulham, obviously London's very far away from Australia and Asia where we play our games. That means there's a lot of long flights. How do you deal with that sort of travel? Because to be honest, some of it seems pretty brutal having to travel that far and then back for games. How do you deal
yeah.
with the flights? How do you deal with the recovery and all that sort of thing?
I've only done it once since being at Fulham. I think it was October time in 2023. And it's actually not that bad because it's in Asia and the flight from Perth to Asia is still quite long. So it's actually not too much of a difference. But I was actually held up in Istanbul because I missed the connecting flight. So I had to stay over the night before, the night at the hotel near the airport. So it was a bit of an experience, but I think when you're on your way there, you're just really excited to go and play for your country. The way back's a little bit harder because most of the time you're flying in the middle of the night and you got a game in the next few days that you have to go into training, a bit tired, a bit jet lagged, and then be ready to perform at your best for the game. But as part of learning, it's part of becoming a proper pro because that's how they live their day to day life.
And during your time at Fulham, you went on loan last season to a
Yeah,
club whose name I'm not even going to try and pronounce because I'll let you do that. I will definitely mess it up.
yeah.
But you did well there. You played regularly. Scottish football is known for being very tough, very physical, very brutal. Going over there, did you find that that reputation sort of lived up to, standards, or was it completely different
Yeah,
for you?
First of all, it's Airdrieonians, and it will probably be easy for you. The nickname is Airdrie, so if you're gonna bring it up again, it's easier for you. But yeah, so yeah, I could definitely see that side of it. Obviously, growing up a Rangers fan, um, I've watched a lot of Scottish football. Family are huge Rangers fans, so I've watched a lot of that. But been to a lot of the games as well up in Scotland. So I am used to that side of it, and you can definitely see that it is a lot more physical, even than down south in England. Maybe because it lacks the technical side a little bit, but when you're playing there, even every team, it just means so much to the people, the fans that come and watch, and it was a great league to play in general because of how much it meant. There's not a lot of money in Scotland in the Premier League compared to the English Premier League. Never mind the Championship up there. So every game means more because you're trying to fight and claw to the top. You're trying to get promotion. We obviously got into the semi final for the promotion playoff and got beat in the second leg, but it was an enjoyable experience. I won my first professional trophy up there. Was probably could have played a bit more regularly, but I learned a lot from it, and I think I've become a better player on the pitch and off the pitch because of it. So
You did just mention the trophy. Cup finals, I know you didn't start the match, but it's still a big match
yeah,
to play in.
yeah,
These games, like playoff matches, cup finals, all sorts of things like that. Before a game, Do you have many nerves or things like that? Do you have any pre-match rituals that you have to go through? Are you one of those very superstitious people, or are you one of those people that can just turn off your brain, treat a big match like any other match, and just focus and get the job done?
Nah, I think I'd be lying to you if I said that you treat it like any other game because it's not. But also, I do get nervous before most games. But for me, that is makes me feel like I'm ready. It's not like nerves of like fear. It's just like you're ready to go. And I enjoy those nerves. It's like good nerves, but you do feel a little bit more need to win in those big games. But it's enjoyable. I think the occasions speak for themselves. There's more people there. It means more. Everybody's up for the game. Usually, like they're tight contests, and it's like if you've got the opportunity to go and change the game and in a game that is important, I think that's going to do you the world of good. So it's enjoyable. But in terms of like superstitions and things like that, apart from eating like trying to eat the same foods, the right foods, I try to cut all that stuff out because when you strip it back and you think like, what am I actually doing wearing the same underwear or wearing the same socks or do you know what I mean? Like it feels
Yeah.
like a little bit of you're putting your thoughts and control into something else when it's you that's going out there to play. So yeah, I think you have to try and enjoy those moments because not everybody gets to go through them.
And being in the change rooms as a player on loan, was it a different vibe at all? Were the players maybe a bit like not as welcoming to you because you're only a temporary player? Or was it weird at all, or was it just pretty much the same as what it was at Perth Glory and Fulham?
I think the boys were a lot like they were very opening and welcome to me. I think when you go up there, maybe from you've got that badge of coming from a Premier League club, even though you're not a Premier playing in the first team regularly. I think there's maybe a little bit of oh, like he's going to come up here and think he's this or that, and you try and nip that in the bud straight away. Obviously, people are going to think what they think, anyways. But I always try to learn from players. There was good players in my position that had played in the Premier League in Scotland, Scottish Prem. Good players like Adam Frizzell played for Kilmarnock. Um, Charlie, little number eight, played for Rangers previously. Charlie Telfer. So yeah, I was just trying to learn from them and grow from them. But also, it is a ruthless game. You have to try and put your best foot forward. You have to try and take people's shots. So, uh, but in terms of the boys with me, they were top notch. They welcomed me and they brought me in and Scotland's got good change rooms. It's a funny place. So there's a lot of characters there. I enjoyed it.
I think the fact that maybe you're from Scotland, your family's from Scotland, may have helped you settle in there a
Yeah, of
little bit.
course. Yeah, of course. I think Scotland might be a little bit of a weird culture to people that aren't from there, but I think people up there they're really welcoming. They're always up for a laugh and things like that. And going into a football team, especially when things are going well, the change room is it's always flying with jokes and little pranks and things like that. So it was good.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate you joining me. I appreciate the fact that you carried this conversation very well because I am quite sick and, to be honest, probably wasn't my best interview. And I'm very
That's
happy
right.
I didn't have to pronounce your team that you're on loan against name again. But
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much. You've had a monumental rise in football and hopefully it continues. I hope to see you in the Socceroos one day.
Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it. Hopefully soon.